Alright, so I did alienation, isolation. I pretty much just use them interchangeably. So, questions that I kind of started out with were, how does alienation affect us? Can there possibly be, a good point to it that might not always be bad? And, what are its consequences? So, one of the books I looked at was The Elephant Man, which is pretty much about, it's about the true story of Joseph Merrick, but in the book they use a John. And it's pretty much, he was born with some disease that pretty much just, completely disfigures his body. Pretty much the only, actual normal human-looking part of him is, his left arm. Recognize that? And so, pretty much everyone thinks he's a freak, a monster, and so he's alienated from everyone. So, he really doesn't get to live a normal life. Eventually he ends up in, he pretty much becomes a possession of someone in a freak show, which is where a doctor eventually finds him, because the doctor just wants to find something that'll, bring his name into public. So he looks around at freak shows to see if he can ever actually find something, and he eventually finds John Merrick. And so he starts just kind of seeing, just kind of trying to think of a word, just kind of examining him. It's nothing curable, but he's examining him and he just shows him to people, so he pretty much becomes another freak show. And so he's been alienated, and this is obviously something not good. He's a freak, he doesn't speak to anyone, he doesn't know anyone, he's not a person anymore really, he's just a thing. But eventually the doctor, Mr. Treves I believe, ends up kind of taking him in because he actually finally starts getting to know him as a person. And then you find out that maybe, because he's such a freak, he really can't fit into society, but because he's been alienated, John Merrick can kind of create his own little fantasy, because Mr. Treves needs money so that he can keep John Merrick at the hospital, because if he doesn't stay at the hospital, he'll end up just going back to a freak show or something. So he needs money, so he ends up letting rich people, it becomes fashionable for rich people to come and see John Merrick. But John Merrick, because he's been alienated from the world, is able to kind of see this as these people are friendly and actually want to meet him, and not realizing that he's just kind of another freak show again. So he's able to kind of save himself from the hurt of that because he was alienated. So it could possibly have be kind of a protection there. The second book I did was Catcher in the Rye, which is just kind of, it tells a few weeks or something of this one guy's life. And so he pretty much has alienated himself, which is, he does this kind of to protect himself from being hurt. He doesn't really get to know people very well. He had a younger brother who died when he was young from cancer, I think. And so the only actual meaningful relationship he has is with his younger sister. But he's able to just kind of he uses alienation as a protection from the world, because he just sees everyone as kind of phony and doesn't really trust everyone. So, but this is also bad then, because he doesn't have meaningful relationships, and so he runs away from his problems rather than facing them and trying to figure them out. So there's also a good and bad to it there. Go ahead. I have a poem which I found. It's a wall between us. There's a wall between us, a wall that has stood for years, a wall without a door, a wall that hinders our eyes from making a glimpse at each other's side. There's a wall between us, a wall which puts on layers of broken glasses and thorns for protection and self-preservation, a wall so high and impenetrable neither of us can reach nor climb. There is a wall between us, a wall that catches the rays of the sun only for itself, a wall that deprives our common garden from warmth and sunshine, making our own garden cold and dry. There is a wall between us, a wall that has stood for years, a wall without a door, a wall that has grown by layers of thorns and broken glasses we put on, a wall that steals away the rays of our common sun. Here is this giant wall between us, a wall we have built for many years, a wall that makes us dwarfs to break down, a wall that chokes the life and growth of our common garden, a wall that makes us fall apart. I see this kind of works because it's, as it says, like for protection, self-preservation, but it also hinders them from getting to know each other and getting to, like, help each other, like making our garden cold and dry. They can't really do anything because there's this wall that either side can put up and build, but it hinders them. So that's kind of a way that I see alienation. And then I have a picture that I think goes along pretty well, which is this tree is like on a plot of land that's been ripped up and raised above everything else, which I kind of see it works well because it's isolated from the rest of the world, so the rest of the world can't do anything to it, but also its roots are no longer in the earth to get nutrients, so it can't grow anymore. And then I also have one more picture, which is this island. You're protected from the rest of the world because no one can get to you, but then you're also completely isolated and you don't know what's going on everywhere else. You can't get help and whatever. So my final conclusion is pretty much, I figure alienation is pretty much, it's a wall. It can be, like, once it's built, it shuts the world out and it keeps you in. It can isolate you, but it can also protect you. So it can kind of go either way. Like most things in the world, it has good and bad. So to be alienated from others, it's generally bad, but sometimes it might be the only way of protecting yourself. So pretty much I just found that isolation can sometimes actually be a good thing, but a lot of times it is pretty bad. So